watch on to see Camilla and I's initial setup tips, which will save you money in the long run. Well, good morning guys, and we're back to basic beginner photography on Camilla and I, and we're moving on to setting the A7II. But before you switch off, all you experts out there, there's one thing that's well worth checking on your camera right now, and that is the first thing I check on any camera, and that's the diopter. This tiny little wheel here that is connected to the viewfinder can be out of sync. If you've knocked that in a previous session, you can be well out of focus without even noticing it, and yeah, you'll soft focus all day long and wonder why your photography is absolute rubbish. So, expert or beginner, check your diopter. Tip: if you get a second-hand camera, and even an old new camera, it's well worth checking you have got the latest firmware update. This is absolutely crucial. This, when I got it, was set to 4, update number 4, and I thought, oh, that's alright, it's the latest one. No, it wasn't. It's 4.01 I required, and this helps with the autofocus, and this was an update in 2019, so bringing this camera just up another notch. So check you've got the latest firmware update. And another thing I'd set now, knowing what I know now about Sony eyepieces, these eyepieces fall off, so this is where a bit more bondage comes into play, a bit of sticky tape, and yeah, if we just get a little bit of sticky tape, whoops, and stick it around there. This will just cover the diopter. I don't need to later on, but literally that just covers the diopter up so I can't knock it anymore, and I've sealed the eyepiece on. Fantastic. And the next appendage we need is a pair of earrings. Now I know what I know now, I'm only ever going to buy one lens strap, and that is going to be the Peak Design one. And that's because, well, I know what I know now. I mean, look at all this lot. These are all the lens straps, and that doesn't include all the lens straps that came with the camera. So yeah, save yourself a bit of money. 70, 80, 90 pounds, can't remember what it cost. Send me a free one to review, Peak Designs. But yeah, I got a separate strap, and in green. So yeah, one strap, and all you need is for each camera is a pair of little earrings. So over the long run, save you a lot of hassle and a lot of spaghetti. Okay, one strap, one lifetime. Peak Designs. God, should be sponsored, shouldn't I? So the next thing I'd do, getting familiar with my camera, knowing what I know now, is back button focus. Separating the focus from your shutter button is a key step in wildlife photography, and I wish I'd done this for landscape. I wish I'd done this for all my photography from the word go. So knowing what I know now, from the word go, I'm setting back button focus. So yeah, quick setup. Skip ahead if you don't want to see the A7II, but obviously on Sony cameras it's a similar procedure, and indeed for other cameras it's a similar way of setting back button focus, but just go on to the particular video for your camera to set back button focus. Absolutely essential for going on to professional wildlife photography. Okay, to set back button focus, press menu, come down to settings at the top here, come down to page 3. Remember, you can navigate across using the cursor. Come to pre-autofocus and select that and switch it off. Okay, and then go back up to page 6 on settings, and we've got to assign the custom key button. On page 2 we're going to assign this AEL button as autofocus on, and as you can see I've already set it on. So anything else? Autofocus on. So now when we select autofocus via the shutter, half depression of the shutter, nothing happens. But now if we press the AEL button there, we focus in, and now we can take the shot. Now the final thing we're going to set today is, it's really tricky. We're going to set this dial up here. We're going to take it off auto and we're going to turn it to manual. And we're going to do this straight off. Can you believe that? So this is where we need the blackboard, and we go back to basics on Camilla I. And well, again, if I knew now, well, I would go straight for manual. And the reason is, by setting auto ISO, you're actually semi-manual. You're not fully at manual. And the controls you need in wildlife in particular are over speed and depth of field. And once you get this basic fact in your head and you use the exposure triangle, aperture, shutter speed, auto ISO, you've only really got to control 2 elements in the camera to get the correct exposure, and that is shutter speed and aperture. Now the shutter speed is appropriate to the subject. If it's a windy day and you've got butterflies, it's going to be at least 1/500th of a second to freeze the action. If it's a fast moving swift, you're going to need a shutter speed of 3200 plus. So the idea is you set the appropriate shutter speed for your subject. A butterfly on a still day, I can set 1/30th of a second, okay? But I do that manually. And then the aperture comes into play, which is the depth of field. If it's a butterfly and I'm in the right focal plane, I'm right next to the subject, I will set a very shallow depth of field, f3.5, f4. But if I need a lot of depth of field in the subject, then I will set a higher aperture post f8, for example, so to get the greater depth of field. So aperture, you're controlling your depth of field with wildlife photography. Shutter speed is dictated by the speed of your subject or the movement in your subject. So it's very easy really, and it's all backed up by auto ISO. And the only proviso on that is we always try and keep noise to a minimum, so we have to watch in the back of our eye that the auto ISO doesn't go ideally above 3200 these days. So manual exposure from the get-go. Painful. So if you don't have the Sony A2, you can skip the following setup guide, but it's just a basic run through of the Sony menu system. Personally, I've never found it that difficult. Just skip ahead, miss this section out if you haven't got a Sony system. And anyway, this is just my initial setups. Aspect ratio 3:2, make maximum use of the 24 megapixel sensor. RAW, always shoot in RAW. Again, that's something you learn by experience. Compressed RAW. There's not a lot of difference between RAW uncompressed and compressed. So anyway, we'll go for uncompressed, but just for the fun of it, just to see if it makes any difference at all. But it'll probably take longer to shoot. Anyway, file format, That's the new XAVCS setting rather than the older version. That's for video, we don't really do that. Again, video, don't really do that. We're not doing that on this camera. Drive mode, continuous shooting. We're going for the 5 frames per second. We're not bothering with a single shot on this one. So, yeah, flash mode, we're not doing flash. So, 3. Red eye reduction, no, we're not doing that. Continuous autofocus, we are doing. We're not doing AFS. We're allowing the camera to continually focus. So it's continuous AF. We're going to start with zone focus, although we can change that to various other modes. Center, flexible spot, blah, blah, blah. We've got a fair selection there, not as many as other. Anyway, we're going to start on either wide or zone, I recommend to start with. Anyway, we're going for zone. AF illuminator, auto. Red eye reduction off. Oh, we've done that bit. Right, go on to exposure compensation. Auto ISO. Exposure steps, third of a stop. Metering, we're going for multi. White balance, auto. I won't comment on these unless they're of any real importance. Again, you can set yours according to how you want to, but this is what we're starting with on Camilla I. Manual focus assist, we've got these zebras on. We've got the grid display, rule of thirds to start off with, fairly standard. Peaking colour, I'm going for red, that will come in due course. Live view display, continuous area focus area on. Finder monitor just switches between finder and monitor. We'll leave that on auto for now, although to save battery power could go onto just the viewfinder. We've already set the custom key setting. We can set any buttons we like in whatever we want, but we're going to keep it basic for the moment. We're on airplane mode because we're not Wi-Fiing anything, so none of that applies. Okay, monitor brightness got set to sunny weather. Again, something you could turn down to save battery power. Later date. Viewfinder brightness, again auto. Again, that could be played with. Volume settings don't apply because we're not doing video. Audio signals, we don't want the camera beeping as we're taking the subject to focus in, etc. But this camera still makes a noise. We might find where the noise is coming from and cover it up. I think it's there. Might be getting another bit of sticky tape and sticking it there because it just stops the sound coming out of the camera to a lesser extent anyway. It's not very noisy, but it does make a noise. So yeah, we do want to cut that down a bit if we can. Power save start time 1 minute. Just saving battery again. Delete first. Clean mode. Remote control off. Mass storage. Change the file name to A7II just to delineate from the A9 and A2 we own. So, and version, yeah, 4.01, confirm. And that's about it. So yeah, just a quick run through of the settings. If you're setting an A7 II, obviously it's dependent on the camera you've got. This is the old Sony menu system, which I must admit I never had too much trouble with. I mean, they're always a bit complicated flying through them. So yeah, this is just a good way of navigating through. You just find the icon at the top and drop down using the control wheel to select your area of interest. Yeah, so we could spend all day setting the camera menu and getting it absolutely correct at this stage, but as we've gone for manual mode, we don't have to. Basically, we're going for practical use now in the field, and this way we'll learn from our mistakes. So we've already learnt that the viewfinder falls off, so make sure you stick a bit of tape on it, and that covers the diopter as well, so you're not going to knock that when you're fiddling around with all the other controls. So there's a good starting tip. We've also learnt that you buy one camera strap and one camera strap system, and then all you need is these little earrings for each camera. And yeah, now it's time to bond with our camera. And we got the little pinky grip as well, which was free. Oh, can't forget the little pinky grip. So now, yeah, we actually put manual into practice. And yeah, this is the frightening bit. And yeah, it's not frightening at all, really. That's the thing. It's a bit of a mystery. I started with Aperture Priority, and indeed, I mean, you can start with Aperture Priority, but again, it's knowing what I know now, I would start with mirrorless. I would go manual, because you see everything in the viewfinder as it comes out. So now it's just a question of getting out there and facing the ferocious beast, the bearded dragon. Wow, the beast is just not playing games today, not playing ball game. Anyway, we'll see. Let's see what we can get. Back button focus. How close can I focus? What is the minimum focus distance? It'll tell me because it'll snap into focus. Oh, darn it. It's coming out. You're not allowed out. Oh, this could prove difficult. Just like my daughter, a feisty little thing. Anyway, what we're trying to do is using the aperture control wheel, this one here, and using the shutter control dial here, just using these two dials. We're on auto ISO, and we experiment with the depth of field and the shutter speed. Obviously, if he's racing around the cage, we need a fast shutter speed, but most of the times he won't, honest. So we'll go for 1/400th of a second. Oh, he's coming back. He's coming back. Quick. Now, let's focus in. As we've gone for manual, we now have two main dials to control. So we're doing basic wildlife photography here, so we're going for aperture settings and shutter speed settings. And just experiment yourself with your subjects and see what you get. I had a very nice comma in the garden the other day, and anyway, I'll show you a couple of comma shots. Fortunately, this has the 5-axis inbuilt stabilisation, and I was able to reach upwards to the branches of the apple tree and get the comma from underneath with the blue sky behind. So link to that one. And then it very kindly posed on a fence post, that one, and then it posed on a fence. The actual fence panels in the background, link to that one. F5.6 if I remember rightly. But that's it. I think I needed F8 actually, but I ended up F5.6. And it just shows you experiment around to get the depth of field. And I think it was 1/500th of a second, but I could have dropped it well down. Anyway, link to that one. So this is what you do. Just get out there and experiment. You don't need a bearded dragon. No, you definitely don't need a bearded dragon. But just play around with your camera now. I mean, that's what it's for. We don't want to set settings all day. We want to get out and use the darn thing. Okay? So now, for now, enough settings. Let's just get out and use it. See you in the next one. Which, the next one, what will we move on to? Don't know. More wildlife, I think. Yeah, it'll definitely be wildlife. And they'll probably go a bit further afield with the same combination. Bye from Camilla and I. Hope to see you in the next one. Cheers for now.